Today we'll be taking a look at glitch, granular, as well as looper effects pedals, which is like a niche of effects pedals that seem to be designed to facilitate happy accidents. The world of glitching loopers is what granular synthesis is all about. And I would say the most inspiring way of using this effects is with harmonic and melodic elements. Of course, this is one of my videos. We're not going to discount things that are rhythmic, so like plucky rhythmic parts and even drums. So what is granular synthesis? Granular synthesis is a relatively new kind of synthesis applied to samples that essentially will loop whatever you record into it, but will reorganize parts of that loop according to parameters that you change on any given granular pedal. So things like skipping, stuttering, changing the loop direction, pitch, or size in real time. This process is very creative because it constantly spits out new ideas and probably parts that you wouldn't be able to come up with otherwise. In other words, you'll be having a lot of happy accidents with a granular effects pedal. In particular, if you're really interested in sound design or textural experimental arrangements, this sort of approach is for you. There are many different types of glitch and granular effects pedals on the market, and we'll be focusing on some of my favorite ones throughout this video. And just a point of clarification, I wanted to distinguish between looper and granular, just to be really clear on this. A looper is a pedal or a unit that just loops whatever you recorded into it, forward, backwards, backwards, and forwards, whereas a granular looper records the loop, but will sort of slice it in sections and reorganize those sections randomly, or again, according to whatever settings you have on that given pedal. In terms of the gear that we're using, I have this cute little pedal slash synth rack. And yes, of course, you could use something like the pedal train Metro 24 for synths as well. I mean, why not? And all the pedals here are being powered at the same time through the Voodoo Lab Pedal Power 3. This could of course power much bigger setups. So in previous videos, I've had like, 6 or 7 pedals. And again, they're all powered by the Voodoo Lab Pedal Power 3. This is the most organized way of doing it, in my opinion. I always like to mention this at the beginning of the video. Your support goes a long way. There are a bunch of affiliate links for all of the gear mentioned in this video in the description of this video. If you're interested in any of the gear here, use those links. I would make a small commission from that sale. It doesn't cost you anything extra. And if you're located anywhere in North America, go with Sweetwater. Basically anything that you need, they're gonna have. We'll start off with what I like to call the set it and forget it method with the King of Gear mini glitch. This really is the perfect starting point for this video. This is a simple glitch looper. It doesn't do granular, but it's essentially like the predecessor of granular effects pedals. And just to give a really clear sonic idea of what it does, we're gonna turn it on. So I'm gonna hit play on the tape machine and notice that I've pitched it down completely. So it's gonna sound like kind of slowed down. And this is something that I came up with on the circuit rhythm. So this is without the mini glitch. It's already kind of weird to begin with. Let's turn this on. And just clearly right away you could hear the glitches. You could choose the sample size. If I want a really small part of the sample, or a much longer one. I also like to play with the rewind sounds and try and get that into the sample. That's kind of fun. Pitch it up. In terms of what's going on with this set and forget setting, I've got it on dry pass, which means that the dry signal is passing through over top of the glitching that's happening as well. If I want to mute that, so this is just the glitching. Can get really gnarly with it. And of course we're set to random as well. So this is for sure my favorite setting, just dry pass with random. There's no possibility of mixing this in any way, like with some of the other pedals here. Like here you can see mix on Fable. With mini glitch, you get that very blatantly glitched sound. Montreal assembly, count to 5. I myself am a Montrealer, and I wish I had the pedal in front of me, but I don't today. It came out around 2014, and it has 3 main modes, which allow pitch delays, random sampling, and layered looping. One of the modes, mode 2, is the granular mode that started it all. It lets you record the sample and automatically divides it into different segments, different slices, and then it reorganizes those segments with a variable degree of randomness. It can also work as a delay or as a looper, which in the end is basically just a delay with infinite sustain. And the other 2 modes introduced reverse playback, loop pitch shifting, and layering, which are other effects often found in granular delay and looper pedals. Now let's take a look at Red Panda Particle 2. And for the rest of this video, we're going to be hearing sounds from the Novation Bass Station 2. It's an analog synthesizer, analog bass synth, which also works pretty well for nice, thick, dense leads. Like the oscillators really do sound great. The Red Panda Particle is a perfect example of what I just described, with its 5 modes, including all the above mentioned in Montreal assembly count to 5, but with the added bonus of being stereo in as well as stereo out. For this pedal, we're going to be focusing on some of the black modes here, which are the granular delay modes, as you can see. So I'm going to hit play on my riff, turn the pedal on, nothing happens because the blend is on 0. I'm going to turn blend up full blast so we could really hear what this delay is doing. If I turn the chop down to 0, it's taking a tiny, tiny little part of that sample. I could take a much longer part of the riff as well. Let's turn the blend back to maybe 50%. And past the 12 o'clock mark, we step into, that's called auto freeze mode. So we're actually going to stay out of that mode for now. Feedback makes copies of the input, and param is a parameter that's different depending on the preset or the setting that you're on here. So let's turn up param. My personal favorite modes on this pedal are LFO. So let's again turn this blend up to 100% to really hear what this is doing. Let's take a smaller chop. So that's a really intense LFO. Could bring that down, make it a little bit more subtle. And now with the riff, 50% blend. Kind of has a mind of its own. Let's go to random. This is my other favorite. Blend to 50%. Or maybe we just want a little bit of this. Like a little bit in the background. Granular effects and space. Let's check out Chase Bliss Mood. Mark II. This is a pedal made in collaboration with Old Noise Blood Endeavors. And like all Chase Bliss pedals, it offers a mind-blowing level of tweakability and lots of controls. And this is without mentioning the 16 dip switches on the back of the pedal. For the rest of the examples here today, we're stepping into a combination of granular and spatial effects. And Mood is like an ambient micro looper in the sense that on the right, you've got your micro looping parameters. I'm gonna hit play on my riff here. This is always listening to the incoming signal. So no matter when I hit this, it just goes. You can modify this, choose the length of the sample. So we're currently set to envelope. If I want tape, this is a completely different approach and texture. And then there's, of course, stretch. So these are completely different. Let's go to the left side of the pedal now. So this is our reverb. This is like a reverb smear here, this modify. Change the length of the reverb. Go back to envelope. Maybe try a different effects here, delay. And then in the middle, we've got clock. So what does this do? It essentially tunes both of these sides. So we could tune it all the way down to here to something ridiculous, or go back to closer to where we were. Right, so it's just spitting out all these ideas at us in a very ambient fashion. So that's sort of the conventional way of using all the parts of this pedal together to create a granular effects ambient texture. Here's an example of using it in more of a rhythmic fashion, using just the left side here, as well as the clock over this plucky riff. Add granular soundscape to your melodies using Fable from Walrus Audio. So I obviously have to start by pointing out the aesthetic of this pedal. Like, is this Groot?
I am Groot.
In comparison to Mood, which just like throws you into a certain direction, it's not quite as subtle as Fable can be. And just like with Particle, that again is mainly because of the mix knob. You could mix in the amount of granular delay you'd like to add in behind of the riff. It's actually quite a straightforward pedal. It's the sort of thing where you just twist knobs and figure out what sounds great. So let's hit play. This is our riff. So to really hear the quality of our effects, I'm just gonna put the mix on full. And this is what you'd be adding over the initial riff. Okay, so what would that sound like in the background? Maybe a bit of a darker soundscape like this with tone. And if we want to, we could just switch to a completely new program. Let's check out program 2. Bit more feedback. What would it sound like if we just turned on Mini Glitch over top of this? Okay, turn this back off. Let's go to program 4. Right, so you're getting just completely different textures with each of these different programs. My personal favorite is program 4 for sure. I find that it's like the most lush option. Mix it in at 50%. I think just hearing the examples is the best way of explaining the pedal. So hopefully that was descriptive enough. Hologram Electronics Microcosm. The best way, or at least the way that I like to describe this pedal, is organic texturizer. Sonically, it also has the ability to be the most complex by far. There is a mix knob as well, so you could go as subtle or intense as you'd like. I've included this pedal in a bunch of my other content already, so here's another video where I featured it. We'll definitely look into some melodic or harmonic stuff, but personally, I actually like this pedal best with drums. Going back to that idea of being organic. So I'll hit play. It's very subtle, but there's something happening underneath. I should also mention that it's tempo synced to my drums, as you can see here. If I slow down the tempo of my drums, it follows along with me, right? So that's cool. That's a cool feature to have on a pedal like this. There's just these nice subtle textures happening underneath. If I want something more intense, I can increase the repeats as well as activity. The space is cool. I find that the reverb time is a little bit long for drums. If I hit shift, this is the shift function, and now I have access to this secondary print here, reverb time, bring it down to 0, and even still, that reverb time is relatively long. And it sort of mixes itself in with all of the other granular things that are happening here in the way that it's reorganizing this beat. Let's go full mix just to hear what it's really doing. It's very dark sounding. Let's bring that back down. I like how the modes are organized here too, so micro loop, granules, multi-delay, and glitch. And I'm using the interrupt mode, which I find works really great for rhythmic stuff like drums. Let's go back to a melodic thing with the Bass Station 2. I'm gonna hit play. And currently I'm on micro loop sequence. So this is a specific mode again. And let's just hear what that's adding. So this is the full mix. Put some space on there. Maybe reduce the reverb time. So this is what's being added. It's quite subtle once again. And then you just have to find the sweet spot in the mix. Let's change that up completely to a different mode and sequence. Ooh, so cool. Wow. So notice now that this is sort of just moving freely. We're not synced up to any tempo here. And that just gives a different result. It's kind of cool. Without. We do lose quite a bit of volume with the mix down, which has to be expected. Ooh, that's so cool. My favorite thing about working with the microcosm and granular effects in general is, again, just the unpredictability of it all. To me, that's half the fun, just experiencing all of the ideas that the pedal is throwing your way. So that is a lot of information for you about pedals. That just about covers it. If you are interested in any of the gear mentioned in this video, please do use the affiliate links in the description. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.